I've had the discussion I had the opportunity to delve into a chiddush, which I need a master for.
Okay, what's that? What the Shani Kippur?
Anyone?
What's the Shani Kippur? Shani Kippur? I'm going to balance it.
Anyone? See what we got on here. We have Sully. Good. One of the interesting nuances of the Machzer, it's actually combined during the week as well. I mean, a Machzer as well. Shabbos is good. It's usually highlighted here pretty well. Okay. Everybody's familiar. Oh, Hamalach. Yo, Sheva, ya, 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 ya. Al kisei aveni so shechina morim. Peichad shemai ya 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 ya. Bechav asavam tzadikim b'Hashem leisharim lovasilo. Okay, and then we start, which is usually sung in a variety of different nigunim. B'fiyishorim tisraim avishim tzadikim tizgad tizborach ya 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 ya. V'shav ein chasidim tiyiskadosh v'kev kedoshim tisalol. And all the machzorim, it has highlighted Yesharim, Tzadikim, Chasidim, Kedoshim, Yitzchak. Tisraimim, Tizborach, Tizkadosh, Tizhalol, Rivka.
Except the Ashkenaz.
Yeah, the Ashkenaz is different.
Doesn't do it.
Yeah, Ashkenaz is right. So the question has always been, people ask you, okay, it looks very nice, but what's it mean? Well, how does Yitzchak and Rivka get into the Machzer? Right? This is the cut. Every Shabbos also, right? I just see. I just see a Shabbos. You're usually rushing through it. It's part of the nusach, right? Is to spend time on these praises that come out of initially they come out of Tehillim. That it's a beautiful poem. And the psukim, I saw they come from different places in the Navi. As it says, "B'fi Yesharim Titzrayim comes from Tehillim, comes from the Navi Yeshaya." Yeah. Why is this coming to the Machzor? Why is it coming to the Siddur? Of all the places in the Siddur, you got it. Yitzchak and Rivka. No other place. You find first. You very find the Yemohos, right? You find a little bit Rachel by and Eicha. You find beyond. It's really hard to say you can find the Leah in the Siddur, except for the Ariya Kodesh says when it says Hokel, right? Because the Shabbos they could. Beginning of the Shabbos to get through Psukkah there, and Hokel was out some ways to Zecha, double wage Tremecha, right? Hokel, Rosh Tevis Leah, right? So there's Ramazim. The same thing, Hokel, I go to give Anora and Shmonesrei, the Ramas to Leah. But other than that, you don't find the Amos. Here you got this blatant reference to Yitzchak and Rivka. Where does it come from? So if those who were here last Shabbos, and for those who won't, I will repeat it. Yep. I hit upon an idea which struck me as fairly interesting and unique, and again, did not find any other Any other mepharshim that to pick up on it? Yeah. Because we talked about last Shabbos that we find the minhag in Klal Yisrael that the father right before the chuppah gives the daughter a bracha. What bracha does he give her? The bracha Rivka gives the bracha Lavan. Vayom elach Chesina at hayil alfei Rebava yira zarcha zarech es shaf soinov. It's he gives it that we give this bracha. Right, this is the bracha we teach fathers. They never looked at the pasuk before. Achesenu, stretch out your hand, put on your daughter's head. Achesenu, our sister, you should become tens of thousands. And your children shall inherit a shar of the gates of its enemies. Right? Very interesting bracha. Why do we say it? Why is this the bracha of all the brachas in the Torah that you could give to a kala? There's a whole bunch of psukim and shiurim for sure we could have used. Yeah? So Rashi says, so what was this bracha? What was the bracha? What was so important about this bracha? So Rashi says, you and your children should receive the bracha that Avraham Avinu received at Har Sinai, on Har Moriah. There he says, your children will inherit the gates of your enemies. Which is an interesting change. So then one change that one word which we'll talk about. That bracha the Avraham Avinu got at Har Moriah should be for you, for your children, but it's not from any other wife. Okay, so how does woman come to the bracha of Avraham Avinu by the Kedah? So Mordecai, he was a shtickle Yakishev Macha, Navi shtickle. He was given this people. When it comes to us, so it occurred to me last week. It's just an interesting diak, and I wasn't sure if it was correct or not. Two psukim before. This is Chavdal Nun Ches. They called Rivka and they said, "Are you ready to go with this man?" But Timer Elech, I'm going to go. 3-year-old girl, right? She's obviously a Baal Chesed, and the whole Ma'aser Eliezer is really quite interesting. All of a sudden, she's saying, "Are you going to go with him?" She said, "I'm going to go." Well, he was there for one night. For one night, she's going to go. So it occurred to me that might be really what is Rivka's answer to them. Are you ready to go to give your life over for to be? They all knew about Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu was really well known. Yitzchak Avinu was already famous. He was after the Akedah because Rivka wasn't born until after the Akedah. Elech, I'm ready to go. She was ready to go, just like when Yitzchak asked Avraham Avinu, right? He says, "My son, my father, where's the Sela Oila?" Remember, Hashem will show my son what the carbon is, and he understood. He was coming. He said, they went together. Rivka's Elech was an equivalent to Yitzchak by the Akedah.
And he got blind.
And therefore, Lavan said that bracha, that should belong to you because you're doing the same type of Mesiras Nefesh that Yitzchak did when he said, "I'm going to go with my father up to the..."
The same Mesiras Nefesh from Avraham when Hashem said, "Let go."
Very similar, right? There's a type of Mesiras Nefesh. Hashem said us to go. She said, "I believe that he's right, that Hashem sent him, as he said." Hashem Hitzliach Darki. Hashem made let me go. He said, "That's it. If Hashem's calling for me, I'm ready to go." So therefore, she was zercha to a bracha like Avraham Avinu. So I thought it was a nice pshat. It was a nice drasha, right? Let's come to Parshas Toldos. Eila Toldos Yitzchak ben Avraham Yitzchak. We know this connection. We know the connection with Yitzchak and Abraham is complete. But he Yitzchak ben Abraham Shana b'Kachtes Rivka bas v'Sul Aram Yipadan Bos Laban Avachos Laban Aram Bilal Isha. And Yitzchak by he is the expression of Tsar. V'Haya is Simcha. By he is Lashon Tsar. Mostly there's turkey legs here if you want to celebrate the occasion. He is Rabban Abraham B'Shana b'Kachtes Rivka is so he's marrying Rivka bas v'Sul Aram Yipadan Aram Achos Laban Aram Bilal Isha. Right? It gives her whole yichus. Her father, Lavan. By the way, anybody know what who Rivka's mother was? Deborah.
I thought it was Menekes.
He was. She was her. It gave it nicely. Menekes, the one who nursed her, was her mother. The Medrash Goda. Medrash Goda says Deborah was Rivka's mother. Medrash Hagoda.
It's good. The turkey is good.
As it said in the Holy FJJ.
It was that's not a Kiddush, meaning.
Yeah. Okay, we didn't know who Rivka's mother was. So that he brings the Medrash. But yet, Yitzchak lenochach yishtay kekorahi. But yeah, so Hashem v'tay Rivka yishtay. Now, so we know that he's 40 years old, and Chazal tells us that another 20 years went by. She was 3 years old when she married Yitzchak. They waited 10 years before trying to have a child. Another 10 years goes by. But, yeah, it doesn't tell us anything else. All of a sudden, it doesn't tell us that this is happening. We know from different Chazal that it's another 20 years. But yeah, Yitzchak goes to daven opposite his wife. Zuk to Rashi. But yeah, this is on Pasuk Chaf Aleph. She stood in one corner, and he stood in one corner daven, and she stood in the other corner and davened. What corner? Well, we were in the same room. That was the same house, the same room. We'll stand in one corner, she stood in another corner. So the they stood in opposite corners. They didn't start down facing each other. Why not? Huh? They didn't put up a mechitza. What was the problem?
There's no mizrach.
No mizrach.
There's no mizrach.
Okay. But yes, Loi, so Grashi, Hashem answered his tefillah, Loi, v'loi lo, to her, to him, and not to her. She'ain daima tefillah tzaddik ben tzaddik. There you can't compare the tefillah of tzaddik, who's the child of a tzaddik. The tefillah tzaddik ben Rosha, the tefillah comparison of a tzaddik, the child of a Rosha. Lefikach Loi v'loi lo. Such a strange shot. What's wrong with a tzaddik ben Rosh? If a tzaddik Rosh should be even higher, right? But Malcolm Shabbat, right? And tzaddikim gemur ma'imdim. Yeah, it's a Rivka who managed to keep herself, recognized that she needs to get out of her father's house, recognized that she understood that they were all over by the zone, and she left. Why wouldn't her tefillos be at least equivalent, if not better? That'd be also look. Yeah, it could be also lahem. He could answer to them, or Vayetar Yitzchak. He could have said Vayetar Vayoser Hashem. Hashem answered the tefillah. He said Vayeser Loi Hashem. I said it must be him and not her. Okay. So this kasha led me to a search. I said, they remember the pshat I said before. No, search. I searched and I caught it over here. Targum Yonason. Targum Yonason ben Israel on Pasuk Chafal. Your name, Johnny's name. Yeah. Targum Johnny.
Yeah.
Yitzchak went to the mountain of where they davened. Asad the kasri avoya, on the place where his father tied him up. Decade. And because they went up there, so therefore Yitzchak turned over his tefillah. That he was able to change the gzera that had been placed upon his wife, arum akara habas, because she was an akara. Gabei, they were married together for 22 years. And he changed also the gzera that was upon him. The afhu haba akar. Even Yitzchak was an akar. Rivka say, and Rivka became pregnant. So where were they davening? Yitzchak said, we're 22 years, we're married 22 years, 23 years. 22 years they were married. Let's go up to HaRav. Yeah, Hashem promised Yitzchak, V'yer zarecha, K'chech b'Hashemayim, right? V'yer zarecha Shar Oivav, right? So Yitzchak comes to Hashem, I have a taina. You promised me we're going to have children. Rivka comes with a taina.
Maria has corners in the mountain peaks.
No, it was a Mizbeach. Avram built the Mizbeach, and he put Yitzchak on top of the Mizbeach, and then he tested and killed the Mizbeach was still there. So I looked, I was curious. I looked in the concordance. The term Zovis, corner, is only found in reference to the corners on Mizbeach, to the corners on Mizbeach. The corners of Mizbeach, besides the corners of Mizbeach, were called Zovis on Mizbeach. The corners of Mizbeach. So Yitzchak stood on one corner of the Mizbeach. Rivka stood on the other corner of the Mizbeach. And Hashem said, okay, I have these two tefillos. They're standing here by the Akedah, by the Mukam of the Akedah. He said, who got the bracha? Where'd the bracha come from? So the bracha for Yitzchak came from to Avram and Yitzchak, Tzaddik ben Tzaddik. I'm going to answer the tefillah of Rivka, Tzaddik ben Rasha. So Avram, Yitzchak, the bracha, the Avram Avinu, got it. Yitzchak got it. I got directly from Hashem. She got her bracha from Lavan. Right? Ain't daima. You can't compare the two brachas. One was a bracha given on HaRav by her. The other one, it's true. She didn't act, which is similar to the kid, and that's why she got a bracha that was very similar.
It wasn't a tefillah. It was who they got the bracha.
But who did they get the bracha from? On whose shoulders were they being mispalled? Yitzchak was mispalled on the shoulders of Avram, and Rivka was davening on the shoulders of Lavan. Ain't a daima. It's got nothing to do with the quality of a bracha. It's just where did the bracha come from? Okay. So now we have an interesting dynamic. They stood at the Mizbeach, and he stood at one corner of the Mizbeach, she stood on the other corner of the Mizbeach. What does that mean? It's the standard corner of the Mizbeach. The corner of the Mizbeach has four corners. Right? So we recognize that the four corners are always representative of the completeness of the Shekhinah. So they stood on each one of the corners, and the other corners were open and for the rest of the bracha to come. So if they're standing on the four corners of the Mizbeach, so then we understand why this bracha was so significant. It's one difference. Not only who they got the bracha from and how the bracha got to them, but what was the difference in the brachas. There's only one word different. Yeah. By Abraham Avinu they got the bracha of V'yer zacha eshar oivav, who inherit the gates of his enemies, and Lavan gave V'yer zarech eshar soinov. What's the difference between an oiv and a soina? An enemy versus somebody who hates you. An enemy you can conquer. You can conquer and drive him away. But you can never get rid of a soina. Even if you conquer him, he's still going to hate you. And Lavan was there holding back. He says, I'm not going to give you the bracha that you will conquer your enemies. That's a beautiful bracha. That's how Avraham Avinu got at HaRav. But the bracha that Lavan gave Rivka, he was holding back. He didn't want to give her the full bracha. Tonight I'll need change.
That means that the bracha from Lavan, the bracha from Lavan wasn't really fulfilled.
Yes, it wasn't fulfilled because you can't stop. You can conquer them, right? You can wipe out all of the Gaza if you want to. They'll still hate us.
No. It's a soda. Exactly.
Yeah. It's a sign of a shakir, right? So that sinner, you can drive them away, but you'll never really conquer. So Lavan held back. And where do we see this later? Because Lavan becomes Bilam, and Bilam hates Klal Yisrael no matter what happens to him. Right? So we have therefore this comparison that takes place. Right? So we come here Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, or every Shabbos, and we say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we want our tefillah to be in the skaba. Right? this bracha, which we want this brachas to take place on the kindness hamizbeach. Right, just like Yitzchak and Rivka got their tefillas answered on the mizbeach of the Keda. When we stand to daven, especially Hamelach, we come for Hamelach on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Right? We're already saying, we know which we have to both tefillas. We need the tefillah of the Yizarach Shar Oivov, Yitzchak bracha, and we need to deal with Rivka's bracha al Shar Sainov. Okay, so far my mind is percolating. We got the Akeda. We got the different tefillas. And then then ultimately it comes back to this dilemma of that which Rivka carried with her would carry with it also her concern that her child would be confused, right? Because the children were arguing it about time them came right? So the very famous word, I think that they said from Chaim Brisker, they said from a number of Gedolim. Says that she knew this. It said Rashi says that whenever she walked by the yeshiva Shem Be'ever, Yaakov tried to run out. Esav tried to push out. So therefore you should say a child that doesn't know which way to go. Anything's better than it. That's the worst thing that a mother wants. A child is confused. So the answer was, don't worry, the two separate children. One's going to go one way, one's going to go the other. Another B'shar Rashi says, they were fighting with each other. Who's going to get Olam Hazav? Who's going to get Olam Haba? Right? So the Medrash goes on to tell us that they made a compromise. Yaakov says he's going to take Olam Haba, and Esav is going to take Olam Hazeh. So we have to deal with the Esav. Why do we have to deal with Esav? Besides the fact that these two are both the children of Yitzchak and Rivka, is that what we learned in a couple of psukim later. We know that they grew up, and Esav becomes each day a side. He's a hunter, each tzada, feldman. But Yaakov sits in the tent and learning Torah. Right? They're fulfilling their destiny. We have Yitzchak I have as Yaakov. And Yitzchak loved Esav Kitzayid Befiv. So Rashi says that he hunted Yitzchak by fooling him with interesting questions that are to show that how frum he is. How do you give truma from salt? Right? Rivka has Yaakov. Rivka loves Yaakov. So Chazal tells us why. So she knew what Avodah Zarah looked like. She knew what Russia looked like. She said, Esav, Yitzchak, you got problems. I know what it looks like. This later Rashi says it later. Right? Rivka saw when she starts to interfere with Yitzchak's wanting to give Esav a bracha, tells Yaakov, listen, you have to take the brachos. You got to get into the brachos. So I saw, as I guess it's all part of the same stream of thought, in Twerski on the Chumash. I had a chance to, when I'm sitting in a waiting room to look, Twerski on the Chumash. After Yaakov takes the bracha, and Esav comes in, and
revolving door.
It comes to, yeah. Too far. This is a capital of Zion. Yitzchak became old and he could not see, either because of the tears from the Malachim when he was on the Akedah, but he couldn't see. And then he calls the son. We know the Yitzchak that Esav was the model of Kibbutz Av. His father tells him it's an ace. The Ramban points out Yitzchak was a wealthy man. He had herds of sheep and cattle. He says, "No, I want you to go out. I want you to make the effort. Go on, bring me. Go hunt for me. I want you to make the effort. Kibbutz Av. You're Kibbutz Av. Show me that you really are ready for the bracha." He goes out. Rivka hears, and Yaakov takes the bracha. He gives him the bracha. Pasuk Lamed. Chob Zayin Lamed. Vayi kasher kili Yitzchak lebarachas Yaakov. Yitzchak finished his bracha with Yaakov. Vayi ach yotze Yaakov me'es b'nei Yitzchak aviv beit avachi b'ameh. So just as Yaakov leaves his father Yitzchak, Esau comes and said, "V'yaskam hum atam v'yovev." V'yom Avi Yukam Av Avi v'yacham and said, "B'noi v'avar t'rachan nafshe." You gave me. They said you're going to give me a bracha. V'yitzchak v'yom Yitzchak Avi mi ata v'yom ani bincha b'chorecha Esau ami v'yachad Yitzchak chavad v'Yitzchak became very frightened, and he tells him, "Remember, your brother came with dishonesty, with trickery. Remember, it's trickery, and he took your bracha." Yeah, give me at least one bracha. Mitzvah Pasuk. Pasuk Lamed Daled. Yishmoya Esav is divrei Avi v'yatz v'yitzak tzaka gedol amor ad ma'od. Yitzchak Esav heard the words of his father, and he cried out a terrible, great cry, bitter cry, ad ma'od. V'yomer Avi b'cheni agam alav. He called him, "My father, give me a bracha." So it brings believers from Sham Shafol. Here's one of the other portion on the Chumash. David Leibowitz, he said, Yaakov was standing in the next room. He just left. And Esau comes in. He heard this word. So the Gemara tells us that because Esau cried out, therefore, Bnei Yisrael would also have to cry. Where do we see it? Megillah Esther. Mordecai goes out from, here's the decree against Klal Yisrael. He cries out this terrible cry to Hashem. He says the only reason why he had to cry was because Esau had already cried. Esau was hurt. That hurt remained for future days.
That neutralized it.
What?
Like it neutralized it.
Yeah, it remained. So that would have to go through that kind of pain, the same kind of pain that Esau went through at that moment. That kind of pain, Klal would have to go through. They have to go through themselves. So he said, what would have happened if Yaakov would come and told his brother, "Listen, I did what mommy told me to do. I did it. I really didn't want it, but I'll share it with you." What would have happened if Yaakov would have consoled Esau? The Klal would never have to go through the degree of the Ashmi. Let's call you. This is a Twerski on Chumash. He says, you see that when you see that somebody else is in pain, even if the person's a Russian, but you cause them pain, you have to feel. You have to feel for them. If you can't feel somebody else's pain, then the bracha is not complete. That pain would remain embedded within Klal Yisrael. So in the Shiur HaKadosh, A cousin of ours once showed that we went to visit him in Square. His whole family, he went through the Holocaust. We got on this conversation of, because he had written a whole sefer on my wife's family history and what they were like before the war and what they were lost. He said, Shalach Chodesh said, he said, when Mordecai and Esther were Mavatal the Gzera of Haman, it only pushed off the Gzera. It would have to happen again. There has to be another time. But there are those who will stand up and say, so he says, we lived through it. We lived through where they already said they're ready to destroy all the Jews of the world. Says that Gzera would have to be. But do we feel the pain? Do we feel the pain of all the agony that we went through? We already started becoming a little numb, and a little apathetic. Okay, we're already there's the Holocaust deniers, and we have to try to improve it, and we go to the UN, and we tell the UN, we deserve Eretz because we suffered so much. Have we thought about all of the pain that is being caused in the process? He says, therefore, now that they've uncovered the records in Gaza between what was his name, Yimach Shmo Sinwar and Hezbollah, that was their plan. Their plan was to wipe out. The Koyach Schus of Klal Yisrael, we pushed it off. We're not done yet. Why? Because when we hear the pain that is taking place, okay, there are enemies. Are we ready to say, but we had to do it but we understand the pain? Or are we still ready to celebrate the fact that we're winning? Yeah, we're strong, we're mighty, we have the IDF, we have the AIF. The Gezerah is still there. And the only way that we could come to the place, we would have to come back to the place of the Akedah and say, you made a promise to us at the Akedah. Years after HaRav, that we'd be able to conquer our enemies. But it comes along with the parsha of Yaakov and Esau. And we have to be able to put into perspective that whatever's happening is not a joy. The Shabbos, we now over 800 mishpachos that sat Shiva this year. 800 mishpachos that sat Shiva in Eretz Yisrael. 800 soldiers were lost. At least 800 families sat Shiva. We're not. We've allowed ourselves to become a little bit distant from the pain. And as long as we're distant from the pain, we're still carrying with us all the difficulties. So when Rivka comes, it says, "By Yisrael Sabbanim B'Kirva," the children were in turmoil inside of her. Then how can I deal with this? You need Hashem to be able to tell us. There's two children there. These are two great nations that will come from there. They will always be in conflict with each other. And whichever one is stronger will serve. The stronger one the weaker one will serve the stronger one. And that meant that that the struggle between Yaakov and Esau is still our struggle. And therefore we come back, when we come to address HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shabbos and Yontiv, we come back to Yitzchak and Rivka, the two brachos. The difference between the brachos of HaRav and HaSoinov is still active. And therefore when we come about how we're going to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, at least in the Nusach, we still come and say, please remember the tefillas of Yitzchak and Rivka on the corners of his Mizbeach. And it has to be that this is the beginning of a thought that's still developing. We still try and annul the decrees with the four corners of the Mizbeach. Lulav and Esrig, the Nanuim, the Kofis around them, around the Mizbeach, around the Shulchan, around the Bima. These are all our relationship with the Tfilas of Yitzchak and Rivka. There's another place we find four corners. Our Tefillin. Our Tefillin have four corners. Each one looks like a Mizbeach. And if we pay attention to the fact that we have four corners of Mizbeach and four parshas in the Tefillin, then we have, maybe we could say, the Schus of Avram, which is B'chol Levavcha, Avram is Chesed, and we have the Schus of Yitzchak, that Yitzchak was ready to give Karamach Hebam B'Shagid of Labed Tzoyis Baruch Shemoy. So the Shal Rosh was there to tell us that we can daven b'schus Yitzchak, and we have the parshas which are terribly malatem by some B'nechem, which is Chus of Yaakov. So again, every time we put on tefillin, we put ourselves back into a place where we recognize the whole nations will see you, that the name of Hashem is on you, and they will be afraid of you. The Gemara says, what does it mean, B'yom Mekah? Elu tefillin shabarosh. Tefillin shabarosh. So it's not very nice. Okay, so we put it on tefillin rosh. There's a famous Chassidish Ma'aser that the Baal Tanya was, when he was thrown into jail, so the Chassidim managed to smuggle in a pair of tefillin. They paid off the guards to smuggle a pair of tefillin. He put on tefillin. The guard who was watching him put on tefillin and came running up to the warden of the prison. He says, "You have a holy man in our." And they saw him put on tefillin, they trembled. They already they started making things easier for him until they managed to get him out of prison. They got out of prison. The Chassidim heard the story that the prison guards became very respectful. They saw him putting on tefillin. It says Edu tefillin shtabarosh. It says, Rebbe, how come when we put on tefillin, they're not afraid? No, so the Rebbe puts on tefillin, they're afraid. They see the same tefillin. He says, you're reading it wrong. He says, unless the Edu tefillin shtabarosh, the tefillin is inside your head. The tefillin on top of your head, that's not enough for the nations to. When you know that the tefillin are inside of your head, then the nations will be afraid of us. So our tefillos of he stood at one corner of his back. He said, you made me a haftacha of years after HaRav. She stood on the other corner of the years after Shar. So his tefillos, we can conquer enemies. But the tefillos of Rivka, Tzadik ben Rosh, she's relying upon the tefillos that says we have, it's not complete yet, because the Lavan held on to that sinner. He made sure that sinner would always be there. And David Cohen has hold shmuz on Oyev and Seine. The difference is it's really Rabbeinu Bachai. He points it out. The difference between an Oyev and a Seine, the two are separate, because you see, an Oyev, the Nazis, they hated the Jews. They didn't want to give up their lives for the sake of the Jews. They just wanted to kill the Jews. If you ask the Germans, were they willing to give their lives to kill the Jews? No. They did, because they had the hate. They were going to years. So eventually, we conquered our enemies. But that a single Muslim will be willing to give their lives to kill a single Jew, that's sinner. That's hate. That kind of sin is not rational. It's not rational sin. That was Lavan. And therefore, Lavan would eventually become Bilam. That hate would always be there, and he would attempt in whatever way he could to cause Klal Yisrael harm. And we're living still unfortunately, with the bracha of Lavan. So Hashem answered him. Hashem says, but the answer to her is the Tzadik ben Rosh, they were still doing a little Lavan's klola, Lavan's bracha. So it's already, Hashem said, did not answer him. So we therefore have the parsha comes and gives us. We see the difference in Yaakov and Esav in the parsha. Elah told us right, and that's with one of the Shatim in the first Rashi on the parsha. Elah tells Yitzchak and Avraham. Elah tells Yitzchak so Rashi. Yaakov and Esav more in the parsha. These descendants of Yitzchak, Yaakov and Esav. We know that. Rashi has to tell us that. You know, it's telling us Elah told us this product of Yaakov and Esav. This is something that we will always have to deal with. Until Mashiach will come, always have to deal with the challenge of Yaakov and Esav. Have to always change. This battle is a battle that is not completed yet. So that part that my uncle brings is a very powerful thought. I saw it. I said, we can be filled with anger. We can be filled with sense of vengeance. But if we don't feel the pain, even of what we're doing, if we don't feel the pain, we're still going to carry the pain with us. Still that gezerah. And that's probably one of the hardest things that we have to deal with is Klal Yisrael Rachmanim b'nei Rachmanim. And no matter what we're doing, we're fighting against Sainim. We're fighting against Sainim. It's very hard to empathize with the Sainim. Very hard to feel bad for them. And yet, if not, then we're missing a piece of the sensitivity of Klal Yisrael. And because we're distant from the battlefields, so we become more calloused, more apathetic. We don't have to throw ourselves into the agony of the struggle. And this becomes, from this point on, Klal Yisrael's struggle becomes the struggle of Kanas Mizbeach. So I thought about it. We used to put on the tefillin. We put on a tefillin every day. Some places put on the Arba converse of the tzitzis also. Our Toldos has also got corners. All corners of our begotten. We deal with the Arba converse oretz every time we get ready for Kriya Shema in the morning. I have we're telling them Arba converse oretz. So it's chusa the tzitzis. We ask Hashem to bring us together from all corners, the four corners of the world. Why is that four corners of the world? Because those corners of the Mizbeach, there's still two empty corners of the Mizbeach. We haven't completed the corners of the Mizbeach. And the Chaim HaKadosh gives us a little bit of a hint. As he says, could be you say, only because of Yaakov was Abraham saved from the Kiv Shanayish. Wouldn't have been for Yaakov, the descendants of Abraham would never have been saved. Ela told us Yitzchak ben Abraham, these are the descendants of Yitzchak ben Abraham. So because of Abraham, Yitzchak was born. Jesus Yaakov told us Yitzchak Abraham. Wouldn't be for Yaakov, then Abraham would have never had Yitzchak, because Abraham would have been burned on Ur Kasdim. So the Doros and the connection of our struggles today are dependent upon if we have hold of the sensitivities that Klal Yisrael needs to have. And it's very difficult. We've been through such difficulties in our world, and we're still going through them. And until we are able to make that connection complete, we are still going to struggle. We're still struggling. Baruch should listen to us. How do we do that? It's close of Yitzchak and Rivka. Berzachet to all Hashem will come all of our children to be able to say halal and be able to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So see Yitzchak and Rivka.
Amen.